Good afternoon, everyone. It feels almost rude to break into your conversations. Everybody's already in such a great networking mode and mood, which is excellent. All right. Well, I welcome you all into the room this afternoon. Before I say anything more, I acknowledge that we meet today on Kaurna Yarta, the traditional lands of the Kaurna people. Where we stand today is a significant site in Kaurna tradition along Karawirapari, later named the Torrens River. This was always a place for gathering and for sharing stories and for sharing knowledge. I acknowledge country and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are present in the room today. I also acknowledge the many lands. Let me do that. Oh, hang on. Why am I not advancing? There we are, that's better. So I would like to also acknowledge the many lands on which Flinders University delivers teaching and research, and on which we engage with industry, government and community. And in acknowledging the past, I pay respect to how the past lives on in the present. And I welcome you to our event today, which starts in the now and aims to move us towards the future. So a couple of housekeeping notes. We have a lovely view from here over Festival Plaza to the north and out to the west. This floor of Flinders University is dedicated to executive functions and engagement between the university and our external partners and collaborators. So you're in the right place. And if you would like to share your absolute excitement at being here or raise some salient points from today's presentations with your network, you can see our LinkedIn is via the QR code on the screen there, along with a couple of key tags if you're a tag user. We have the floor pretty much to ourselves today, I believe, but from time to time on this floor you may bump into Vice-Chancellor Professor Colin Sterling or perhaps Chancellor John Hood or other members of our senior executive team. And with the council room right next to us, there's many a big decision that has been made right here on this floor. Should we need to exit in an emergency, however, we'll be alerted by the usual sirens. The first will tell us to get ready to go, and if there is a second, then it's time to evacuate. We'll be assisted by a fire warden to safely exit the building via the stairs. If you need the bathrooms, head along the western wall and follow the signage. Please feel welcome to look after your comfort as you need. So thank you for joining us for Future Ready SA, Critical Technologies and the AI Pathway for Business. South Australia's state policy on critical technologies provides the strategic foundation for today's event. It focuses on leveraging technologies like AI, cybersecurity and data analytics to drive economic growth, innovation and investment while supporting key industries such as defence, healthcare and advanced manufacturing, many of which are gathered in the room today. We know that's why you're all here. But importantly, the goal is not about just developing the technology itself. It's about increasing awareness and accelerating adoption across industry. Effective adoption of critical technologies is a strategic necessity for our future. It will drive productivity, it will set up new businesses, new business models, and it will disrupt existing ones. It will demand and respond to new skill sets in the workforce and change the way we live and work. We have a concise executive briefing for you today, and I'm mindful that we started a couple of minutes after the bell, and so I'll ramble on and get you across to Trish. Professor Trish Williams, Flinders University's Cisco Research Chair in Digital Health for the last 10 years, will give us an insight into the report and give it its official launch. Angus Russell from the Department of State Development will provide a briefing on the state of critical technology adoption in South Australia before Dr Rose Scandari, Field Chief Technology Officer for Cisco, will offer an insight into how critical technologies will shape things to come. Richard Dodsworth from the National Industry Innovation Network and ICA, Innovation Central Adelaide, will take a view from the boardroom on governance and strategy, and we will then hear some stories from the field from Natalie in health and Alastair in energy. I look forward then finally to sharing a new Innovation Central Adelaide or ICA initiative with you, which is the AI Pathway for Business. And I will invite some submissions into our pilot round. And we'll finish the day well with refreshments and an opportunity to network and dive into some further in-person conversation. I'm excited. I'm delighted to have you here with us. And without further ado, I'll ask you to please welcome Professor Trish Williams, the Cisco Research Chair in Digital Health.
Thanks, Catherine. Now, it's interesting because you can't see it on here, but it's fine.
I know, you can look
I know.
straight at the back.
Oh yeah, okay, wave at me, Belle, that's great. It's one of those things, you know, as you get older, you can see with your glasses and then you can't see without your glasses. It's like... So, welcome everybody this afternoon. It's great to have so many people here this afternoon. I told Catherine if I said we were having wine, everybody would turn up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd like to begin by congratulating everybody who has been involved in this report, which is the Innovation Central Adelaide and for Flinders and Cisco themselves have really been contributing to this. And these sorts of reports, you know, a lot of them sometimes get printed and then just get sort of left on the side. But what this one does is it doesn't just document where we are, it starts to give a roadmap and a pathway for where, you know, where we can go and what are some of the things that you can do. And working in critical technologies, as I'm sure many of you will know, it's the only time when you write a report about critical technologies that by the time you finish the report, it's actually a history report. So, you know, things do move quickly and they're no longer emerging, they're actually here. So it's not a question of whether or not we want to use the technologies. They are here, they matter, they're going to stay. But we need to look at how we can adopt them safely, securely, and make sure that we're getting the best from them. Yep, do come in. You're late. Have you got a note? Sorry. That's all right. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. So Australia has some exceptional researchers. We have innovative companies, like many of those companies are represented here today. We have world-class universities. And in South Australia, we do have particular strength in defence, in health, in advanced manufacturing, energy, and clearly in digital technologies. And our challenge isn't coming up with new ideas. The challenge is how to turn those really good ideas into solutions that people actually use. And it means that we do need that collaboration between the universities, industry and, of course, government, and we need strong implementation pathways to be able to do that, which is why that collaboration is so important. So that's what we're actually aiming for with the report. Now, I've been in this game for quite a long time, even though I used to say I only looked 25, and then my children said, "Mum, but I'm 34, so how does that work?" But I've always firmly believed that research should leave the university. You know, for me, the purpose has been in digital health and in cybersecurity. And so for me, whatever we do should improve hospitals, should improve patients' lives, should be safe, and should improve what industry does as well at the same time. And that's really key to everything that we try to do in the research. One example is, 20 years ago, or probably even 10 or 5 years ago, hospitals were nervous to use critical clinical systems on wireless networks, and in cybersecurity, even a few years ago, cybersecurity is treated like a great big hug. If I know where everything is and I can control it, I'm very happy. But now we don't have life like that. Clinicians want to be able to work on the move. Patients are constantly being monitored from wherever they are. Security and patient safety become much more difficult. And so when we have that clear change, we need to be able to go with that, both with the technologies, but also from the security, etc. I mean, medical devices are a great example of that. I expect half of you have got something that's tracking you of some sort on your arm. But even in hospitals, thousands of devices that we have now work on, hopefully, separate networks, but not always. But they need to be, put together correctly and implemented correctly. And one of the things that we are most proud of is this work. I know that this is, it's just the idea of a temple, but one of the things was the Safe Hospital Wireless work that I did a few years ago that we've just updated is currently being incorporated into a new international ISO standard, which means that seeing the research project become international guidance is really, really rewarding. And it means that, we're not simply publishing research, but we're actually changing what happens in practice. Now, whenever I mention standards, everybody goes like that. So I understand that other than people like me, who get very excited by standards. It isn't everybody's cup of tea, but I just would like to tell you that if we didn't have standards, every phone charger would be different. Every red traffic light would be open to interpretation, which in Adelaide sometimes is the case. And IKEA furniture would have 47 different Allen keys, 132 different screws, no instructions, and you'd still be left with one bit that you have absolutely no idea what you're supposed to do with, but apparently isn't very important. So, going on to the other love of my life, cybersecurity, then we've worked closely with Cisco, but other industry partners in cybersecurity. And I do remember the days when the best security advice was, don't tell anyone your password, right? Life was really simple in those days. And, 20 years ago, it was much easier, I think, in cybersecurity. We knew where you were, we knew where computers were, we knew where the edge of the network is, and now we don't have that. That's disappeared. We all, well, me mostly anyway, work in cafes, airports, airplanes, or at home. And so our information is not necessarily in a specific place. It is somewhere in the cloud on a server, but not necessarily close to you. And things are connected to the internet all the time, including your car. So AI is also making another huge impact on that. Whether you realise it, and most people don't always, or whether you like it or not, AI is helping make decisions all the time for things that impact you on a daily basis. So we have some things called zero trust, which is about, not that we don't trust anybody, but we need to make sure that we are validating who people are, what the devices are, what the AI application is, what the ordinary application is, what the interface is, before we actually trust somebody. Unfortunately, quite often, I still find that the biggest security challenge is not the new technology. It's trying to convince people that fluffy 123 exclamation mark is not a strong password. Now, back to the report. You're not having this at the refreshment, sorry. The report talks a lot about systems thinking, and I firmly believe if you're going to solve complex problems, you need to have systems thinking, because it's not necessarily about focusing on one technology, it's about how you put the things together. The same way that AI is not an AI problem, AI is about data, is about connection, it's about cybersecurity, governance, ethics, and above all, it's about trust and explainability. And so when you don't have any one of those particular components, that whole system becomes a lot weaker. Which is why it's a little bit like making a pavlova, because if you have really scrumptious, softly whipped cream and yummy strawberries and really fragrant raspberries and a bit of mint and a bit of passion fruit on the top, but you forget the meringue, all you've got is a very expensive fruit salad. So it doesn't necessarily work. So for you today, the important aspect of this particular report is that it doesn't stop with the analysis, it actually starts to say, well, how are you going to act? And you have to ask yourself the questions, what opportunity is there for your organisation, not in the future, but now? The second question is, what capabilities do you need to build? Is it that you have some AI experience, but you need new partnerships, or you do need some stronger cyber security, better data, get a feel for what your organisation needs. And then what are you going to do next? And not next week or next month. What are you going to do next quickly? What conversations do you need to have? What partnerships do you need to have? Because the reports themselves give you ideas, but they don't change things. People change things and leadership changes things. So South Australia has extraordinary opportunities, great researchers, innovative businesses, and we won't simply adopt the critical technologies. We're going to shape how they are used safely and responsibly. But you have to remember that critical technologies are a lot like teenagers. They grow incredibly quickly. They cost much more than you ever expected, and they often keep you awake at night wondering what on earth they're going to do next. So I would like to thank Catherine and the team at ICA for authoring the report, and I think it's now time that we actually build on that. And so I think most of you will have, if you haven't already, been given a copy, and it's my great pleasure to officially launch the Critical Technologies Report. Who says? Catherine, back to you.
Thank you, Trish. Opportunity, capability, action, I think is what I took away from, partly what I took away there. I'd like to welcome Dr. Rose Scandari from Cisco to take us through a view of AI now and into the future. So Rose, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. The future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. A quote from William Gibson, which perfectly encapsulates the state of AI these days. We see lots of advancements, lots of news, research coming from AI, yet most of the organizations are stuck into their pilots, not realizing the true value out of AI. My name is Rose Scandari. I'm the Field CTO for AI Solutions at Cisco APJC region. My role is to help our clients to build AI solutions successfully onto Cisco products. Prior to Cisco, I was the director of AI at Swinburne University, and I had multiple data and AI data science functions in multiple industries. Today, we are going to explore how we can evenly distribute the future for critical technologies in South Australia. Let's start with some numbers. Do you know 85% of AI projects fail to deliver on their promises or meet their goals? Are you going to the next slide, Catherine?
Yeah, I'm trying. There we are, Rose. I've got there now.
Yeah, thank you. And one enter.
Sorry?
Enter. Press one, enter. Yeah, thank you. And then the next one. 88% of technically successful AI pilots never make it into production or into deployment. Do you know 42% of businesses scrapped most of their AI initiatives last year? Enter. And do you know more than 60% of AI projects will be abandoned due to a lack of AI-ready data, like even this year? Do you know over 40% of employees are using shadow AI, which creates an invisible data leakage surface. And do you know, it requires less than 4 hours for attackers to weaponize a zero-day vulnerability, which used to be over 2-3 weeks prior to Mythos. While these paradoxes are the reality these days, but these aren't the reason to retreat. They are the growing pains of necessary evolution. Next slide, please. We are now at the inflection point where we must move beyond the hurdles to achieve the true enterprise-wide impact. For past 2 years, the conversation was around like experimentation, AI experimentation, but today we are crossing the borders into era of enterprise AI. South Australia has a unique opportunity here. You aren't just adopting technology, you are building the infrastructure for the next decades of economic growth. The transition from pilot to production is where the real value of AI is unlocked. But it requires a shift in mindset. We are moving from asking what AI can do to how we can scale safely and securely and effectively across entire organizations. Today, we are going to look at how we can build this bridge. Next slide, please. Today, AI is no longer a brain, which was just generating some text, images, etc. Today, AI has hands. We are entering the era of agentic AI, where systems are empowered to execute end-to-end business workflows. But this isn't just plug and play. To achieve impact now, we need a hybrid architecture. Our data is distributed as our AI must be, whether it's on-prem for data sovereignty or it's on cloud for scale. Our infrastructure must act as a single unified fabric. That is the core of the AI pathway for business. It's the catalyst that turns raw capabilities into measurable business outcomes. To do this responsibly, we have to stop treating AI as a software project. It is an operational mandate. We need to have visibility of full stack observability to know what our AI is doing and how it is performing. And we need to have AI narrative security to ensure that our agents are doing everything safely and securely. Next slide, please. To stay ahead, we need to look ahead. At the moment, only 10% of the workloads are at the edge. But guess what? By 2027, 75% will be on edge. Why? Because an agentic world, like latency is the enemy in the agentic world. If your agent wants to communicate to the cloud, come back, it might be too late for that. And it might be too slow for competing against in your industry. But the most exciting shift is that AI is no longer just digital. We are entering the era of physical AI and robotics. AI is moving from the screens into the real world, automating logistics, manufacturing, complex AI things. And we are also tracking the rise of quantum computing, which will redefine how we solve optimization problems, even the security, cybersecurity, etc. What does this mean for us? It means that our architecture must be adaptable. In the next 3 to 5 years, we move towards autonomous networks and self-healing and distributed intelligence that runs locally. Foresight isn't just about guessing what's coming. It's about building an architecture today that is ready for the edge, for the physical world, quantum era, autonomous future, and everything. The winner will be those who architect for the shift before it happens. Next slide, please. And next. Now, I would like to wrap up here with a very interesting point on a point about human and the environment. Next slide. We are building this technology not to replace ourselves with AI, but also asking AI to serve us. The true human advantage is in the AI era isn't about competing with machines, but it's about how being activated as a thought leader, as our innovation, etc. It's about the team who use these tools to solve our most complex problems while staying grounded within ethics and governance. We also have a responsibility to our environment. The infrastructure we build today must be sustainable, ensuring that our pursuit of intelligence doesn't come at a cost to our planet and to our next generations. As you live today, remember the technology will change, the age will shift, the models will evolve, but the responsibility to lead with purpose, to govern with ethics, and to invest in our people remains constant. To stay ahead, look ahead, but always keep your eyes on the human impact. This is the only way to build a future that is truly worth it. And thank you for having me today, and let's stay connected. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you so much, Rose. That's as I said, it's a tight it's a tight schedule, but that's really insightful. I always find Rose's insights really valuable and really inspiring. So thank you so much, Rose, for what you've brought us through today. I'm just finding my technology is being just a touch interesting for me now and then. There we go. So I'd like to invite now to speak to us about the boardroom. Our very own Richard Dodsworth, make sure that I'm being picked up here, our very own Richard Dodsworth, who is the NIN Industry Alumni Chair, ex-Cisco for a few decades. He also looks 25. And ICA's Technology Advisor. Richard, the floor's yours.
Okay, so I'm normally one to walk around the room and speak, so this is going to be a constraint to have to stand behind the lectern here today to talk to you. But yeah, so I wanted to talk today not so much about technology, but about the way that boards and governance committees need to start thinking about the use of critical technologies, and in particular AI is the obvious choice here. I'm sure many of you have been to many a conversation and many events where the discussion about governance is focused on exactly the points that Rose made around ethics, guardrails, culture, and all the elements around how to use the technology. And I wanted to use my 7 minutes here to talk about something completely different that perhaps we don't spend as much time talking about when we think about critical technologies and the role of governance and boards in what we need to do. So technology is a great thing, and it's always promised to make things simpler. And in the boardroom, the way that translates into a board conversation is about, well, how does technology help us with our purpose? How does technology drive our strategy? How does technology help us with our risk profile and how that applies? You know, at the board table, we don't care about the how it gets done. We think about, well, what is the impact of technology on what we're doing as a business, as the board, as the governance council within the organisation. And so up until now, or the last few years, as a board, we've typically thought about technology as a tool, as a way of making things more efficient. It's a way of reducing, as I said, the risk and fulfilling our purpose and delivering on our requirements in a much better way. But as we've seen, and the lived experience that each of us have, is that technology has moved from being just a supporting arm of the business. Maybe it was simply being able to publish our brochures on the internet, on a web page. It's moved much more nowadays into providing a much deeper core foundation to the actual existence of many businesses. You know, without technology today, many businesses would really struggle to fulfil their purpose and fulfil their mission that they have promised to their stakeholders. And so, until now, boards have thought about technology as a tool, and having now to start thinking about technology not so much as a way of doing the business, but how does it impact everything from how do we engage with customers strategically, how do we change our operations, how do we integrate with our supply chain, and how does that impact the strategy that we have around just-in-time delivery of product and those sorts of things. And then really importantly, how does it impact our risk in what we do, and how does it eliminate or reduce our risk, or what new risks does the technology bring? And then above all, the big one that it really has come as a surprise to many around trust is the risk of brand damage through social media, for example, or through people not having a very good customer experience and sending messages out to that effect. And so the board, around the board table, the way that we approach technology has had to change. And with the advent of AI, I would suggest that this has changed even further. So if we think traditionally, how does expertise build in an organisation? How do we do what we do when we're inside of a business, and what does the board care about? And so traditionally, when someone joined an organisation, you would come in with your own set of skills and lived experience, and you would come in and you would observe what's going on in the business. You'd start to assist where you thought you could add value. You'd start to do tasks that didn't require your supervision. You'd perhaps become an expert in that field, and then you start to teach people that again. And so, this apprenticeship model that we think about, that's been around for generations in how businesses operate and how do they create the infrastructure where people can build judgment around what is good and what is required by the business, has been in place for a very long time. AI, I think, completely changes that paradigm. No longer do you require experience to make a judgment or a call. You can simply ask the question. You can type into your favourite AI chatbot, give me the strategy to making this business successful, and magically you'll get an answer. You'll get a very confident answer back from the AI system. And so when we talk about at the board table, well, how do we make sure that we're getting good answers back from AI, because AI is being used in our business? What's the answer that we always hear? I can hear your minds thinking, Richard, it's humans in the loop. We put a person in the loop. So we ask that someone is a human in the loop of this discussion around AI to verify that the answer that we've got back from the AI makes sense. Now, my conjecture is, well, who are these people? Who are these humans that we're putting in the loop? So today, they're the people on the left who have built that experience, who have built that judgment over perhaps many years in the industry or through experience. And that's fantastic. And it works really, really well today. And the board doesn't have to worry too much about that because we have that covered. But what happens over time as we stop developing the people on the left? What happens when the business decides to cut out its graduate intake and remove some of those low-level entry jobs and replaces that with AI? How does the business then develop someone who can perform, someone who can master that idea within the business, someone who can be the human in the loop when AI is making an hallucination or simply making a mistake with the answer that it's giving back? And so I think the change at the board level where we have to start caring about this is, well, now it's not just an execution about training people in tools, it's about making sure that we have capability, and we're making sure that the capability at the board level is being promulgated through the organisation, and at the board level we care about what's happening around the capability and having a stewardship around that as a board. And so I think there are three things at the board level that we need to start thinking about when we're thinking about the introduction of new technologies that make decisions for us. It's not just simply digitising a process, it's something that's making a decision and outsourcing perhaps that decision to others. And so the three things here are around, what critical capabilities does a board need to ask management, what are critical to our success as a business? What do we need to keep in-house? What critical skills and capabilities do we need to have in the business to be successful going forward? What skills and knowledge have we outsourced, whether it's to vendors, to AI, to platforms? What now no longer is part of our remit to make a decision, but is someone else is making that decision on our behalf, and we're taking that in as a business? What's the risk of having someone else make decisions for us? And what happens if that goes away? And then thirdly, it's about, well, as a business, what are we going to ensure that we develop as capabilities going forward so that we have a successful business in the future? And so it's really answering that question about who will be the humans in the loop of the future if we stop developing the skills in the way that we think about the business. And so, you know, we spend a lot of time at board meetings and around the board table thinking about that technology as a technology. But I would say that capability stewardship is now a core responsibility of governance, in addition to all of the care factors that we have around technology and the way that it can align with our strategy, our purpose and our risk profile as an organisation when sitting around the table. And so I think, you know, for the future, the test of governance, when we think about critical technologies, and AI being a great example there, it's not just how well we use the technology. The companies that use technology the most are probably not going to be the most successful in the long run, but those who also instill and build the capability to drive tomorrow with their people, with the resources inside their organisation, are going to be those that are successful. And as always, it's the discussion and the delivery of what happens around the board table that will drive that into the organisation to think clearly about what does this mean for us as a business and how we think about the adoption of these technologies going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. So we're talking from a range of different angles, and we had the pavlova, so I think you can hopefully start to see the shape of the pavlova coming together, and it sounds delicious to me. I'd like to welcome Angus Russell from the Department of State Development, Business Development Manager in Critical Technologies, to give us a bit of an overview. So we've heard sort of some of the foundational aspects, and we're about to move after Angus into some of the applied aspects of this. Angus, we've put you in the middle like the delicious cream to give us a bit of an oversight and insight into adoption as it currently stands.
Thank you, Catherine. Normally when I'm in the middle of a food analogy, it's an Angus patty, but good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much to Flinders, ICA and Cisco for putting this conversation together today. My name's Angus Russell and I work with Invest SA, which sits within the Department of State Development. I only have the one slide for you today, but I'm yet to come to one of these events and people say, geez, I wish that guy talked about government policy a bit more, so bear with me. So what I'll cover today is I want to talk about how the South Australian Government is approaching critical technology from a policy and implementation standpoint. I'll focus particularly on artificial intelligence and how we're implementing that and what that means for how we work every day. So back to basics, what is policy? Policy is establishing a set of guidelines, principles and rules to guide decisions, ensure consistency and achieve optimal outcomes. It's how things get done. Policies are very important, unless you work for FIFA. Those of you who know government know that it's inherently conservative. Politicians stand to lose more by making a mistake than by doing nothing, being flat-footed and not jumping at opportunities. The South Australian Government, however, recognised very early the incredible advantages that critical technologies can bring to our state. We've proactively established policy that enables the adoption of critical technologies, both within government and allowing it to permeate our economy. The government has been willing to take that risk because we understand that being too cautious, too slow to adapt and adopt could cost the state far more prosperity in the long term. When the state government talks about critical tech, we're talking about the technologies that will define the next stage of economic growth. And these are some highlights here beside me, but it's definitely not exhaustive. These technologies cut across our priority sectors, which were mentioned earlier, in which South Australia has at least some level of competitive advantage, including defence, space, health, food, wine, agriculture, the green economy, energy and minerals, manufacturing, education, tourism and advanced services. These are not just technology sectors in their own right. They're enabling capabilities that make every one of those priority sectors more productive, resilient and globally competitive. At Invest SA, we leverage that to create more jobs and more investment in our state. AI is the best example that I can give you because it's furthest along the development curve and presents the best adoption opportunities right now. Last year, the South Australian Government was the first state to establish a dedicated office for AI. The Minister responsible now is the Honourable Chris Picton MP, who's also the Minister for State Development. Backed by a $28 million commitment in the state budget, the office was set up to spearhead AI adoption through proof of value pilots within government and to foster growth throughout our economy in an AI ecosystem. Within the Department of State Development, we follow a generative AI framework built around principles of ethical use, responsible use, and effective and efficient use. Practically, that means that staff remain accountable for the quality and consequences of work that's been informed by AI. We review outputs critically, use approved systems for official information, respect privacy and intellectual property, and disclose AI involvement where it materially informs decisions that affect people or organisations. That might sound procedural, but in practice, that's exactly how good adoption happens. For example, we can use AI tools to draft a briefing structure, test public messaging, summarise long documents, turn meeting notes into action lists, or compare policy outcomes and options. But the human still provides the judgment, checking facts, testing assumptions, understanding context, considering risks, and making the final decision. AI can accelerate the first draft or the first analysis, but it does not remove the need for public sector accountability. A current example of that is SAI Chat, a whole-of-government AI platform that's being implemented by the Office of Chief Information Officer and the Office for AI. It's being tested as a public sector-focused assistant within South Australian government context, with security considerations, information classification settings, and responses designed around government style and requirements. We see it as really important that South Australian businesses see the government walk the walk. We want organisations to move beyond curiosity and into confident adoption, starting with a business problem, identifying data and governance requirements, testing value through pilots, and building team capability. I know a lot of people in the room here would be very much at the forefront if you're coming to events like this, but we want this to permeate throughout the economy. So your mum and dad accounting firm, we want everyone to be confident that this is a good way to go and to create value for your business. Through Invest SA and the broader department, our role is to connect companies with the right research partners, programs, investors and government pathways so that adoption translates into economic growth. When we talk about South Australia's critical technologies policy, we're really talking about an implementation system. This system includes research capability, industry adoption, public sector buy-in, trusted governance, infrastructure, skills and market conditions all coming together. AI is central to that system right now, but we will follow the same guiding principles when helping industry adopt new technologies that will underpin future competitiveness, which is all of those sectors that we see here. In closing, the South Australian Government is committed to harnessing the benefits of critical technologies to improve services for South Australians. At the same time, we do so in a way that protects rights, manages risk and delivers clear public value. That balance is not optional, it's core to who we are as a public sector. When we get these values right and put the right guidelines in place, we can unlock the incredible efficiencies that we're hearing about from all our wonderful speakers today. Thank you.
Thank you, Angus. One of the things that we like to do here at Innovation Central Adelaide at ICA is bring all of those stakeholders into the room together and spark some great thoughts and hopefully spark some excellent discussions. We will now move into the very practical side of the presentations that we have. We have two presentations for you now, one from health systems and AI and the second in the energy sector. I'm not going to interrupt the two of you. I'm going to throw to you, Natalie, and Natalie directly to Alastair. But please come on up, Natalie, and take us through digital health systems and AI.
Oops, I put the timer on. 7 minutes. So thank you so much. I will start. So I joined Calon. Calon is the Central Adelaide network of hospitals. It represents the Royal Adelaide Hospital as well as the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And it's one of the bigger employer of South Australia, more than 10,000 employees and staff. So they asked me to help regarding the strategy. Why? It's because I worked 20 years in France in research, and I moved in Australia 8 years ago to create my own startup. So I have these two caps, entrepreneur and researcher. So in SA Health, we cannot use AI at the moment, but it's a huge opportunity in the health sector. So this publication, it's related to three numbers, 60, 30, and 10. 60, it's what we deliver in the healthcare. 30%, it's a waste of time regarding duplication, low-value task, 10 clicks to access to your software or duplicate the different tasks. So 10% is the harm events. So the AI opportunity is focused on this 30%, where we could definitely save time, but also money. For Calon, it represents, for example, 1 million patients per year. So if we save only 1%, it's a huge gain in value regarding the impact on cost. So there is an opportunity. In the healthcare sector, there is different challenges we are facing about, for example, the increasing of demand with chronic disease, for example, with mental health. We have also a short gauge of workforce. New generation don't want to become doctors. It's long studies, so it's the reality. We're rising the complexity of care. We're growing the administrative burden and also the pressure for doctors where they can go to the tribunal if something happens. So the AI can help to improve different points of that. So it's not to replace clinicians, it's more to have the capability to deliver care for people, so to have more time for patients. So I would like to share different examples worldwide. The first one is in Bulgaria, and it's about remote people. For example, in Australia, it's about 27% of people who live outside of big cities. In the world, it's about 43% of people living in the rural area. So this example is to use Internet of Things, so different devices that you put in your body, and you have different data that you can after push to the cloud, analyze it, and you have doctors that can screen that and monitor. So you don't need to go to the hospital, and you can monitor that and follow after also a visit of the hospital, so in the time before and after also. The other example, it's in the US. There is, for example, different X-ray images. So the idea by using AI, it's to quickly analyze the pictures. So for this example, they say 42% of pictures that was maybe wrong, analyzed in a wrong way. So it's also to replicate between junior doctor and senior doctors, so to have something that is replicable and scalable. The third example is about a smart hospital. So here it's more to, when you come to the hospital, you scan your plate, the plate of your car. So we know exactly when the patient is in the hospital, and we can help them to go to the good service. So it's to increase the stress for patient, but also for doctors to triage and to optimize the different appointments. And the fourth example is about a virtual hospital. It's in the UK. So it's also when you have a baby, or if you don't want to go to the hospital because you cannot walk, or if you want to avoid contamination. So the idea is to have virtual hospital where you can have an app and you can do some appointments online. So what we are doing at Calon, it's to build this AI capability. We are working on different strategy. We work on 7 pillars, and here it's more what we started to work on, the governance, as well as the education piece. So for new staff who join Calon, they have a training, it's an animation where we explain what are the risks in healthcare about patient data. So it's different pillar we are working on. I will try to accelerate. We are working on the 8 principle of from the Australian. So it's the Australian Department of Industry who published these 8 pillars, 8 principles. So when we assign project, the idea is to score the risk that the project represents, because you don't have the same risk between, for example, monitoring or having some meeting summaries and the risk when you do some diagnostic with AI. So we need to be able, from one person to another, to evaluate the risk. So there is nationally other models that we started to work on to replicate for Calon the same models where we use the 8 principle. There is a huge potential, for sure. There is a huge demand also from the staff. I just put some examples. And the future in short term and in long term is huge. We have a roadmap. And I think the conclusion is the fact that the question is no longer whether AI will impact healthcare. It's more the question is how we ensure AI delivers value safely, ethically, and at scale. Yeah, thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I assume I can just click that. There we go. So my name is Alison Mavika. I'm one of the tech leads here at Innovation Central Adelaide, and I'm just going to talk quickly on a project we've been doing in relation to renewable energy. This was part of a larger research grant fund from state government, and we collaborated with a number of industry partners as well as research groups within Flinders University in Factory of the Future. And the main goal of this was to try and look at what we can do on the practical side of research to utilise existing data and existing assets to try and implement those net zero strategies, move towards what we can do, how we can optimise the things that we already have. As a background to this, we used the Bedford Park campus for the energy system. Turns out it's actually a really great living lab for this sort of research. There are thousands of solar panels across all of the buildings and the car parks there that have been recording information for quite a number of years, quite regularly. Normally, these will all get sent to an observation platform that's used for maintenance purposes and making sure that the health of everything is working as intended. But when we got access to it and we started unpacking it, we saw it from a completely different angle. We thought, it's great that we can see the state of the system at any given time, but what if we could see the state of the system in an hour, in a day, in 2 weeks? So what we did was we created a series of machine learning models on each building to predict the generation of the solar panels for each building, the demand and also a capability of generating energy, because that does change based on the demand, based on the weather. It still doesn't tell the full story of what we want though, because if we do start implementing some of these sustainability strategies, if we start upgrading infrastructure, let's say, for example, in this building, we add another row of solar panels, the existing data that we have recorded no longer represents the current state of the system that we have. Therefore, training entirely on historical data isn't quite what we're looking for. In response to that, we also developed a simulation platform to take all of the information that we already have, simulate some changes to that by changing different parts of that energy system, like the technology within the batteries, adding and removing the number of solar panels and wind turbines. To prove the accuracy of that simulation, we created a digital twin of the Bedford Park campus. So we digitized all of the energy assets that they have, ran the simulation against the recorded historical numbers to prove that we can do that quite accurately. So at this point, we know that we can accurately predict the output for generation and the demand of a building in the future that already exists. And we can also simulate what's going to happen if we do make changes to infrastructure, if we do build a new building, if we add batteries. And it just opens the door for a ton of questions after that. What happens if student enrollment increases by 1,000 more students than we expected, and the building demand increases? What happens? Is the grid still stable? What happens if we do add that row of solar panels? Are we going to be able to use the energy? Using this platform, we can run many simulations very quickly to answer a lot of those questions. An example I have on the board here is what happens if we just buy a bunch of batteries. At the top, that is the total generation for a building based on the battery capacity on the x-axis. And the bottom is how much energy is wasted. So we can see that by adding batteries, we're able to generate more, we waste less, up to a certain point. Because eventually you have more battery capacity than you're able to fill, and it's not really worth buying the batteries and installing it at that point. So you can run simulations to find the optimal part of what's actually going to work with what you already have. So we are a little bit short on time, so I'll keep it a little bit. I can yap for a little while. We're not short of ideas for further research in this area. But we do think that this is a great example of having existing data and existing infrastructure and still finding new ways to interpret that, finding new ways to get insights, and use it in ways that can influence the decision making in the future as well. So I'll let Catherine jump back up and start closing things out.
You'll have to take an opportunity to grab Alistair aside if you want to know more about what he's doing. It's very exciting stuff. Absolutely. I'm the last one. I'm standing between you and a drink, but you know I'm feisty, so look out. I would like to say thank you to all of our speakers. I hope that you agree with me that I think they've really been able to bring to life the conversation today, and in particular looking at the report that we're releasing today that Professor Trish Williams has released for us today. She's taken us through the pavlova that this report represents, and I hope she's whetted your appetite. But the question do I hear you say, how do we get our hands on one of these pavlovas? Well, I'm delighted to share with you all now a new ICA initiative that is aimed at bridging that gap between AI interest to, here we are, I can hold this in my hand, that'll be a bit easier, from AI interest to real-world adoption. The team and I at ICA have spent a little bit of time over the last just under a couple of years of the reforming of ICA and bringing it up to speed. And in that time, we've seen quite a bit of a gap, I guess, between that interest in AI and other critical technologies and the ability and the readiness to take that into adoption. But before I outline the AI pathway for business, I want to start with this image in front of you because it captures something important. So too often, AI is talked about as something fairly abstract. It's talked about as complex or out of reach, and the diagram changes that. It's the ICA AI tree. At the very top of these, the leaves, and these are the things that we often most associate with AI. We look at predictive analytics, we look at smart manufacturing, at autonomous systems, generative AI and agents. But these are really the outcomes. These are the visible applications across various industries, and they don't stand alone. They rely on the branches, the core capabilities of machine learning, automation, robotics and forecasting to achieve what they do. And beneath all of that, at the bottom of the tree, what we don't usually see are the roots. And these roots represent data, infrastructure, and compute power. But the data has to be the right data, and it has to be in the right format. We need to know what to do with the data. The infrastructure has to be there in the right way, built in the right manner. It has to be cyber secure as well. And the compute power needs to have enough grunt to get the job done. And at the centre, holding everything together is governance, is that strong trunk that holds it all together. Security, training, policies and protocols. And this is critical because AI, from your pavlova to a tree, AI is not just a technology, AI is a system. And if the roots are weak or if the governance is missing, the entire system becomes fragile. And this is where we see that many organisations find themselves today. There is interest at the top of the tree. There is interest in those outcomes, in the what can AI do for us today, tomorrow. But we might see that there's uncertainty about what sits underneath. How do we know that our data is the right data? Is it in the right format? How do we use it? What are the governance layers that we need? And so this is exactly where the ICA AI pathway for business steps in. Is designed to address this. In a 3 to 4 hour discovery session format, the AI pathway provides a clear, structured way to move from curiosity to capability and action. And I think it comes all the way back to Tricia's slides at the beginning. So the pathway begins with a shared understanding, that shared view of the AI tree. So that's the start, bringing everybody together onto the same page to understand what it is that we're talking about. Before making an assessment of where the business is now, ooh, that's a good sound, working without my outside voice, okay. Looking at where the business is now, working with teams and leaders in a facilitated process to identify action and plan to target. And using this framework, we plan that organisations are able to demystify AI, cutting through that hype and complexity and grounding it in a real business context. So from there, the next step is Cisco's AI readiness. So of course, being backed by Cisco as we are, we're taking their global leading readiness index and we've baked that into our AI pathway for business. We address that readiness assessment covering strategy and leadership, data and infrastructure, people and skills, governance and risk, and the ability to deliver value. And the result is a clear, shared view of current capability. But that shared insight alone is not enough. The real value comes from identifying practical pathways forward. And this is where the conversation shifts from possibility to implementation. Through a facilitated process, organisations identify high-impact opportunities, prioritise them based on value and feasibility, and define some clear pathways forward from quick wins to longer-term transformation. And finally, that pathway focuses on those actions that we wish to take. What does it actually need to move forward? At the end, organisations walk away with a clear understanding of AI, visibility of strengths and gaps, and prioritised opportunities and defined next steps. Ultimately, what we're aiming for through the AI pathway for business is to strengthen this entire tree, hand in hand with business. So we're bringing together the research, the knowledge, the technology and business. We're not just focusing on the tree, on the leaves, but building the roots, the structure, the branches, the whole system required for sustainable, responsible AI adoption. As we've heard before, the organisations that succeed in AI are not those that will be doing the most experimentation. They are the ones who build the strongest foundations, who connect that whole systems approach. And that is exactly what this pathway is designed to enable. And with that, I am very delighted to launch the AI pathway for business and to declare it open for business. We are now inviting in our pilot round, so we'll go to a pilot round. We want to test this proposal that we're putting out to the world. That pilot round will welcome 6 small to medium enterprises who wish to come in for a complementary engagement in that AI pathway. Just take one. So we've got some flyers outside. The QR code is there right now. There are also some flyers out in the breakout space that you can scan with your phone as well once we're having a drink. Please feel welcome to have a conversation with all of our colleagues around the room. And with that, I would like to close today's event. I thank you very generously for your time today, or for your very generous time today. I hope that today has given you a condensed, fast-paced but highly informative tour of what's possible with critical technologies and AI. It's given you an overview on the pathway for success, and please take one of these reports home. The reports we've done a short print run, and the rest of them will be available online as a digital format. We've explored lots of opportunities now. It's time for us now to strengthen our connections across the ecosystem over a refreshment. What better way? This is South Australia. We love our good food, we love our good wine and our good cheese, and we have a little bit of that for you this evening. The conversation doesn't end here. Please do stay. Please continue the discussion. Join us for drinks and networking, as well as having the team in the room, except for Rose. We wish we had Rose in the room as well. You also have outside ICA's, two of ICA's staff, Belle Turner, who is responsible for our outgoing communications, for making slides look so wonderful, for getting us looking shiny and approaching the world in a very welcoming and excellent way. And Alistair is one of our two tech leads. Alistair's background is in data science, machine learning, AI, and Tina's background is in smart gaming, web interfaces, and the creative human in the loop side of things. We also have Flinders University's Chief Research Development Officer in the room, Dr. Melitza Simmel, if you'd like to have a conversation with her. I can see so many people in the room that I know. It's delightful to see you all. Welcome to a drink and a bite to eat and networking, and thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you online too, Rose.